In Weird Bible Wednesdays this year, we have been going through Jesus' family line as found in Matthew's genealogy in chapter 1. And we've been finding that God is a gracious God who chooses imperfect people. And even when those imperfect people turn away from him, he remains faithful to them. We heard about David, who's the greatest king of all of Israel, his son Solomon, who asked for wisdom, but then got sidetracked chasing after wealth and women. His son Rehoboam was not a good dude. He rejected godly advice, ended up splitting the whole nation of Israel into Judah and Israel, and he led the people into idol worship. Today, we are discussing Rehoboam's son. He has another weird name. His name is Asa. Instead of making a bunch of the same mistakes that his father had, Rehoboam, Asa did what was right, and he actually followed after the ways of his great-grandfather, David. He did a bunch of things. He got rid of the male shrine prostitutes, he removed the high places, he cut down the Asherah poles, and he built up towns in Judah. And because of this, God gave him and his country peace for 10 whole years. So when we follow God wholeheartedly, God is often going to test us. And he doesn't do this in a vindictive, mean way. He wants us to succeed. And if we will follow him and trust him, he's going to help us do it. So in 2 Chronicles 14, God tested Asa. There was a big army from the land of Cush, which is modern-day Ethiopia, and they came down to meet and fight against the people of Judah. So Asa recognized, even though he had a pretty big army, he needed to rely on God. And so he prayed, he sought God, and God completely delivered the Cushite army into their hands, and they were able to come home with tons of plunder. Asa passed the test. Shortly after, a prophet named Azariah came to Asa and warned him.
The Lord is with you when you are with him. If you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you forsake him, he will forsake you. But as for you, be strong and do not give up, for your work will be rewarded.
Asa continued to reform the nation. He removed idols. He made idol worship illegal. He commanded the people to worship God. He repaired the altar of the temple, and he even deposed his grandmother, Maacah, from her position as queen mother because she was an idol worshiper. If the Bible was just a moral storybook and this was all that was written about Asa, then we would definitely be able to point to Asa and say, wow, look at him, he's awesome, be like him. But guys, there's only one perfect person in the Bible, and that's Jesus. So God sent another test Asa's way. In the 36th year of Asa's reign, Baasha, the current king of Israel, came against Judah. They basically laid siege to the territory of Judah so that nobody could go in or out. So basically, Manitoba COVID restrictions under penalty of death. And instead of relying on God like he had in the past, he took all the gold of the temple, gold that belonged to God, and he sent it away to a neighboring country and asked for their help. Instead of trusting in God, he put his trust in a different country, and they came to rescue him. God sent Hanani, a seer, and if you see that word in the Bible, it just means prophet, and he went to Asa and he said,
You relied on the king of Aram and not on the Lord your God. Were not the Cushonites a mighty army with great numbers of chariots and horsemen? Yet, when you relied on the Lord, he delivered them into your hands. For the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. You have done a foolish thing, and from now on, you will be at war.
Instead of repenting and turning from his sins like his father David had, he became angry and he put Hanani in prison and he started to oppress some of his people. And very sadly, in the 39th year of his reign, Asa was inflicted with a very painful disease in his feet, and even in his illness, he still didn't turn to God. He only relied on the physicians. There's so much we can learn from Asa's life, but I think the bottom line is this. We need to rely on God and God alone. Like Asa, it's so tempting to just trust in your own strength or go to other people instead of going to God. When we're sick, we go to the doctors. When we're lonely, we find a boyfriend or girlfriend. When we need advice, we go to our friends. When we need more money, we work harder. Guys, all of those things aren't bad things, but God wants our allegiance. He wants us to turn to Him and trust in Him. And it's interesting to note that for quite a while, Asa commanded the people. He made it illegal for them to worship idols under penalty of death. But that didn't change the people's hearts. One day, a king would come that would do what Asa could never do. He would live a perfect life. He would always rely on God. And one day, he would die in our place. Jesus is better than Asa. He has the power to do what Asa could never do. He can change our hearts, but He wants us to trust in Him. I don't know what you need to trust God with today. All of us have things in our lives. We need to trust God. We need to rely on Him alone. If you need prayer today, please reach out. We would love to pray for you, and we hope you have a great Wednesday. See ya!